Welcome to the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Rosensweet, mom of 3 young people, peaceful parenting coach, and your cheerleader and guide on all things parenting. Each week, we'll cover the tools, strategies, and support you need to end the yelling and power struggles and encourage your kids to listen and cooperate so that you can enjoy your family time. I'm happy to say we have a great relationship with our 3 kids. The teen years have been easy and joyful, not because we're special unicorns, but because my kids were raised with peaceful parenting. I've also helped so many parents just like you stop struggling and enjoy their kids again. I'm excited to be here with you today and bring you the insight and information you need to make your parenting journey a little more peaceful. Let's dive into this week's conversation. Hey there, welcome back to another episode of the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. Today's episode is a coaching episode, and I was coaching a parent named Lian, and she came to me because she has a 4-year-old son who was doing a lot of swearing, and she wanted to know what to do when he was swearing at them. And it turned out that also he was doing some other aggressive behavior like hitting. So we got real deep into the swearing and hitting and basically helping a dysregulated child and also what to do when it's really upsetting for you, as it was for Lian. She found it really tough. So we kind of worked on her mindset as well, and how to not only support her child when he was having a hard time, but how to support herself when she was having a hard time because of his behavior. And also be sure to stick around to the end to find out how things went for her when she was able to, put in place some of my suggestions. But before we dive and meet Lian, I just want to remind you that if you would like some more support and you would like to have some coaching or talk to me about coaching, you can go to my website, sararosensweet.com, and there is a link there to either book a coaching session or a free short consult. If you would like to help yourself on your own, I also have a free course, which is sararosensweet.com/yelling. It's how to stop yelling at your kids. It's an e-course that you just do on your own. And it's a really great course. It's a great introduction to peaceful parenting. As we know, our first foundational big idea of peaceful parenting is self-regulation. That doesn't mean that you don't get upset or frustrated. Of course, you're going to get upset or frustrated because you're human. It just means that you know how to calm yourself, or you try to calm yourself when you do get upset, so you can respond rather than react out of anger or frustration for your child. Again, if you'd like to check out that free course, it's at sararosensweet.com/yelling. And finally, last thing, I promise, if you would like to support the show, it takes a lot of time and energy to put the show together, not only that, but money. And if you would like to support us, you can go to patreon.com/peacefulparenting, and you can see that you can either make a small monthly donation, or for a slightly larger one, you will get access to Q&As, weekly Q&As with me and my team. To find out more about the Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/peacefulparenting. Okay, let's dive in and meet Lian. And once again, all these links we'll put in the show notes. Show notes can be found on your phone. If you just scroll down in the podcast description, you will find the show notes there, if that's confusing at all. If you don't want to, you're driving, you don't want to write stuff down, it's always there. And it's also always on my website under podcast, all of these links that we mention in the shows. Let's meet Lian. Hi, Lian. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
So how can I support you today?
So I have a little 4-year-old boy, and I would say about 6 months ago, he really started using profanity a lot. And it's not something that he hears often at home, like maybe very occasional in those moments of being really upset from a parent, but we keep it to a minimum. But I guess maybe he heard it one time, and he has just been saying it with a lot of frequency every day, multiple times a day. And sometimes he swears when he is upset, and so using it in that kind of proper sense. And then sometimes he says it just when he's trying to be funny, saying bad words, like along with like poop and those kinds of things. He'll add it on. So yeah, I just find it concerning because he's like just newly turned 4, and yet he has like the mouth of a sailor.
Oh,
And
so tough.
and it's not like we're just swearing all the time. So you're like, oh, it makes sense.
You know what? Even don't beat yourself up about it. Even kids who
Yeah.
never heard it at home, might hear it on the playground or might hear it at school, or even if they just hear it once at home, it makes a big impression. And, it's really like, don't blame yourself. This is such a common problem.
Okay,
Does
good.
he go to school or daycare?
Yep, he goes to school. He's in JK.
Does he swear at school, as far as you know?
As far as I know, no, which I'm so grateful that it hasn't bled over into that part of his life. And the teachers still think he's like a darling, not angel, but like not that level of naughty. So I'm really glad that he's kind of kept it contained at home.
Yeah, which is great. So that's it's a simpler issue when he's just doing it at home than if he were doing it at school. And it also gives me more information about why he's doing it. And so whenever we have an issue in parenting, it's really helpful to think about like what's driving the behavior, right? Like what's the need that's underneath the behavior.
For sure.
And you said two situations where he swears, one when he's trying to be funny and joking around,
Yeah.
and then one when he's upset, right?
Yes.
So there's sort of two different strategies that we'll look at. And this is the thing about swearing is it's a limit that's not enforceable. Like you cannot stop him from swearing, right? Like if you had a limit like you can't pull the dog's tail, you could remove him from the dog or you can remove the dog, but you can't actually stop words from coming out of his mouth unless you like duct tape over his mouth. And of course I'm joking. Like you can't stop people from saying things. So the only way to stop the behavior is to try to get to the root of the behavior.
Yes.
So let's tackle the easier one first, I think, which is that when he's trying to be funny. Well, like, let me back up a little bit. What have you said to him so far? Like, what have you tried so far before we get into strategies?
So far, I've tried saying, well, first, I've tried ignoring it, and I was hoping that just taking away its power would work, but it didn't. So then I tried saying, no, thank you, because the teachers say that at school, whenever children do something that they don't like, they just say, no, thank you. No, thank you.
It
So I
probably works
tried
for the teachers.
yeah, so I just tried adopting that. I'm like, "No, thank you." Not at every single one, but like once every 5, I'll say that, and I'll just try to ignore the other ones. But then recently, because it's been now ongoing for a while, and sometimes he'll just go on a rampage saying it so much, and when he's angry, it's like really rude and insulting. Sometimes my husband and I have started to emotionally react and start getting upset, and my husband has said like, no, don't say that, and like been like really mean back to him. I've gotten frustrated too. So now we're kind of getting to that stage occasionally when we get really kind of triggered.
Oh, I hear you. It sounds so frustrating. So, a couple of things off the top. Try not to catastrophize it. Does not mean that just because he's a potty mouth little 4-year-old, it doesn't mean he's going to turn into like a horrible kid who's like, rude and mean. Like, just really like this is a moment in time. He's still really young, and this doesn't have any bearing on what kind of kid he's going to turn out to be, and it doesn't have any bearing on what kind of parents you and your partner have been. Like, even the most, it, not that there's such a thing as a perfect parent, but even a close to perfect parent still has a kid who does unsavory things sometimes, right? Like they're young and messy and they have low impulse control and big feelings. So really try not to take it personally. And that's going to help you stay calm too when he is swearing. So try not to think that it's has any bearing on the kind of kid that he is and try not to take it personally. And also think about like just to address, because I know that you're ignoring it and the no thank you are two really common pieces of advice that you'll hear out there when kids are doing things that we don't want them to do. The thing about when I go back to what I said before about it's a need. It's like there's a need, there's an underlying need for his behavior. So if you ignore it, you're sort of just ignoring the need, which is, maybe he would give up on whatever the need was, but that would be kind of sad. Like if he thought, oh, I'm not getting what I need from my parents, or maybe he'll just keep doing it because the need is not being met, right? So both the sort of ignoring it literally and also the no thank you, like just that sort of really nonchalant thing are really ignoring the root cause of the behavior. So let's try something else. So I would have a talk with him first of all about if you haven't done this already, and maybe you have, but I would have a talk with him about swearing. And when you might say something like, when you use words like that, people might think that you're a rude little boy. because that's true, right? People will judge us based on the words that we use. And you can say they're just words, but people do, make an idea about you based on the words that you say. So, and also those words can hurt people's feelings. So, and I don't want you to say that it would hurt your feelings or his dad's feelings, because I want you to still be the strong leader, and you don't want him to think that he has so much power as a 4-year-old that he can like hurt you, right? So you want to talk about social norms. The social norms about swearing are that it can make people judge you, and then it can hurt people's feelings. So I would just, at a moment when it's not an issue, I would just kind of introduce those ideas to him. That's not going to stop him from swearing, probably. I mean, maybe it's like magic and it'll stop him, but I kind of doubt that, because it still hasn't really addressed the need, right? But that's sort of how I want you to, in general, think about talking to him about it. So as you pointed out, there are two different kinds of scenarios where he swears. So let's take the easier one first, when he's trying to get attention. A lot of people will say, I mean, not people who follow peaceful parenting, but a lot of people will say that if a kid's doing something for attention, you should ignore it. But if he was doing something, if he were, acting out, and we'll call swearing a way of acting out, right? This unsavory behavior. If he were acting out because he was hungry, you would give him food, right? You wouldn't say, oh, we're not going to give him any food because he's just acting out because he's hungry. Or if he were acting out because he's tired, you wouldn't keep him awake, right? You would try to meet that need. And for kids, or for anyone really, attention is a need that's just as vital as food or sleep. So we want to think about, this kid is acting out because he needs attention. So how can we give him attention in a different way rather than either getting upset about it? And that's the thing. Kids will do things that get our attention, even if it's not the attention they really want. Like they'll act out to get attention. So one way that I love, when you think he's doing it to be silly, Larry Cohen, who wrote the book Playful Parenting, we'll link to it in the show notes. He suggests that you say something like, "What?" Like, "Oh, just don't call me," and then say something really silly like, grasshopper banana head, or something like
Yeah.
that. Like, "Oh my goodness. Well, as long as you don't know my secret name, grasshopper banana head," and just get him laughing about something else. Or you might say, "What? Little boys who say that get, pick him up by his feet and swing him around." So you want to try to redirect the way that you're giving him attention. And you also want to like make a note to yourself that if he is acting out because he wants attention, how can you find maybe, some more ways to get 10 minutes a day of playful roughhousing with him, or, finding those micro moments of connection to delight in him. And you said in the questions that you answered for me that you do already try to give him a lot of attention. And I'm not saying that you don't give him attention already, but that, 4-year-olds can be bottomless pits sometimes of
Yeah, clearly he needs
attention.
more.
Yeah. So, I mean, and just to recognize if you can't give him attention in that moment, just think, okay, well, I'll look for some time in the next, after I'm done, whatever I'm doing, to try and give him some attention, and just remind yourself, this is just a bid for attention. And maybe just try to get him laughing like that, don't, as long as you don't call me by my secret name, and something really ridiculous. So that's how I would respond when he's doing it with the playfulness.
But what if we're already playing
Hmm.
and things are going great with our playing, and then he inserts that? So then it's like he's already getting the attention. So then I don't understand.
Yeah, so he's just being silly and outrageous. He's just sounds like a kid who loves a fun time, and he's just being silly and outrageous. So I would underreact and still go for the silly Mr. Banana Pants or whatever it
Mhm,
is.
mhm, mhm.
And just that would be a time where you're not ignoring it because you're just going to keep giving him more fun and play, but you're just giving a lot less power to those words. Because as we said, it's an unenforceable limit to tell him not to say those things. So just under respond, know that it really is going to pass. Remind yourself he's not saying this at school, or to anybody else as far as you know, and that words are just words, and try to just, not try to remind yourself that it's not an emergency, and go for the more play and more laughter.
When you say that this will pass, does this normally pass for most people at a certain point?
Yeah. And I think, I don't know any kids who haven't gone through a swearing phase.
And then usually around what age does it?
I think it's lasted for longer than it might, because you and your husband have been having such big, strong reactions to it. I would bet that, when we do our check-in in a couple of weeks, I'd be surprised if it was still happening very much. And I'm not going to say that if you practice the things that I'm going to suggest to you, I think you'll see that it starts to reduce. I'm not going to say he's never going to swear again, but right now it sounds like you all have gotten in a bad pattern with it of reacting or not reacting, and let's see what happens if you start trying this. But really it's super common.
Hmm. Okay, great.
Yeah, and because most kids just do it at home when nobody else is around, other people don't know about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a level of shame for parents like, oh, my kid is saying these awful things. Like, I don't want to talk to anyone about it. So you might not know that your best friend is also having the same problem. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. It is definitely humiliating.
Hmm.
I mean, I guess it shouldn't be, but it does feel like it.
Well, you can't help your reactions. You can recognize your reaction and then give yourself a different story. Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
not an emergency. This is normal. This isn't going to last forever.
Yeah, hearing that it's normal, I think helps. I
Hmm.
don't know if it's talked about enough.
Yeah.
Like you hear other kinds of common things for children, but I don't hear this talked about a lot. So hearing that it is normal is good for me to
Yeah.
know.
I think if well, first of all, now it is going to be talked about more because you're on a podcast. So that's good.
Woohoo! Spreading
That's
awareness.
right. Exactly. So, yeah, in my circles, like with kids with more, or parents with kids who are a little bit more challenging or spirited, you definitely hear this more. And there probably are some kids who never swear, but, it's definitely common.
Yes.
Yeah. So I
Yes.
think
And
it's with
he
our
is
more
in the
spirited.
spirited category.
Yes. Yeah. I
Yes.
could guarantee that just by
Yeah.
how you're describing him. So, yeah, for kids who are more spirited and who have big feelings, also, I can imagine he has big feelings.
Yes, always.
Yeah. Yeah.
From
So this is
birth. So,
totally normal. Totally
yep.
normal.
Yep.
So just
Okay.
remind yourself, Sarah said this is normal.
Mm-hmm,
It's not going to
mm-hmm.
last forever. Doesn't mean he's a bad kid or that we're bad parents. And just really try to take the level of dysregulation down for you and your partner. That's going to help a lot, right? That's going to help a lot. So then the second category, when he's angry.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So he is saying the worst thing that he can think of to let you know how big his feelings are and to let you know how upset he is. And that's why
Yes,
adults swear also, right?
it's true.
Like adults swear so that you'll know how intensely they're feeling. And so imagine if you were really upset about something and you were using some strong language with your husband and he ignored it or said, no, thank you. How would you feel?
Yeah, definitely next level enraged.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yes.
what would you like to hear instead?
Probably, wow, I didn't realize that this was upsetting you that much.
Perfect. You must be so upset to be saying that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Wow. You must be so upset to be saying that. Oh, honey, I'm here to help you. And again, you're ignoring the swearing, right? So just you're responding to the feeling that's driving the behavior that's causing the swearing, right? So you're responding to that feeling. So if he's, you've just told him, he has to put away the iPad or whatever. I'm just making things up. And he's like, blah, 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 F bomb, S word, like whatever. And you don't respond, you don't say anything about the swearing. You just say, you must be so upset to be saying that to me, sweetheart. And if you want to, if you feel you need to address the swearing, you can say, you can tell me that in a different way and I will listen. I don't think I would do that for a 4-year-old, especially a newly turned 4-year-old. Maybe for an older kid, you might want to give an alternative, but you just want to let them know that you understand. Oh, I wish I could say yes to this. You're so mad that I'm saying no. I hear you. And you just empathize. Just empathize. That's all he needs. Just like the example I gave when you were, using strong language with your partner. What you want to hear is, I understand. I'm here. Of course you feel that way. Of course you're upset, sweetheart, that I said it's bedtime or whatever it is. And just really trying to stay calm yourself is so important.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's really good.
And getting mad back at him will make him more dysregulated and probably swear more.
Yeah. It's just really hard when he's like calling me like really horrible names. And yeah. It would be easier if he was being like, F, I don't want to go to bed. But when he's like calling me, like, you F, I'll slap you in the face, and just
Yeah. Aw.
really horrible. Like, it's so hard to be like, oh, I hear you.
Well, you need to give
I
yourself some
understand, I'm
love. And
upset.
yeah, give yourself some love. And this is the mantra that I want you to remember in those moments. He's not giving me a hard time, he's having a hard time, right? This is not about me. This is the big idea, is that our children's behavior is not indicative of whether or not we're a good parent. And if you're getting, triggered, because it's, underneath every trigger for every parent, there's the I'm not good, or I'm not good enough, or I'm unworthy and unlovable, or if I had done X, he wouldn't be doing Y. So what
But
you
isn't there some truth to that, though? Like, if you're a really good parent, wouldn't a lot of behaviors kind of be avoided?
mm,
Not
well, first of
all,
all,
but like
okay,
many.
first of all, I don't like the good parent, bad parent dichotomy.
Yeah,
But let's say you're a parent who practices peaceful parenting, and when you mess up, you make a repair, because nobody is perfect.
exactly.
There are still, if you have a really easy, compliant, like easygoing kid, you probably won't see much challenging behavior. However, if you have a kid that's more spirited, more sensitive, more strong willed, even if you're like as close as possible to perfect peaceful parent, you're still going to see some challenging behavior. Kids, their brains aren't finished developing. They have big feelings. They have low impulse control, and it doesn't, okay, let me put it this way. Sure, there's a relationship between how skilled you are as a parent and how well you're able to stay regulated and your child's behavior. And you can be very skilled at self-regulation and have tons of tools in your toolkit that you use all the time, and still have a kid who has challenging behavior. And there are easier kids out there. There are easier kids who you know, don't do this kind of thing, but they're just easier kids. It's not because they have better parents.
That's so true.
And it's funny because I often see, we're talking about impulse control. I often have clients who have kids who are more challenging, and, maybe they're getting reports at school that their kid won't sit still in circle time, and they're, getting up and trying to like poke their friend or whatever. And then they get the report home, your child needs to work on self-regulation. And the parents feel so stressed, like, my kid's, getting labeled as a behavior problem. And what I say to those parents is, you know what? Your child has low impulse control because they're 4 years old, and all 4 year olds have low impulse control. But this is the thing: the kid that is getting up and walking around and poking their friend does not have worse impulse control than the kid who's sitting quietly and listening to the story. The kid who is sitting quietly and listening to the story doesn't have the impulses to get up and poke their friend. It's not that they want to get up and do something else, but they're better at sitting. It's that they want to be sitting there. Right? Like, all 4 year
Yes,
olds have the same level of brain development, but some kids just don't have the impulses.
that makes a lot of sense.
So it's the spirited kids, or the kids who are with big feelings. Those are the kids that often, sadly get labeled as behavior challenges or behavioral kids, because they just, have a harder time managing themselves because they have bigger feelings and more impulses.
And why do you think that it hasn't crossed over into the school world yet? Do you think it's just this level of comfort with us at home? It's a safe
That's a great
place?
question. And I think it's a combination of the safe place, and that he doesn't get as it's the same reason why some other 4 year old could say that to you who's not related to you, and it wouldn't trigger you in the way that your own 4 year old does, because you and he have a more close relationship. And so the things that, his teacher not paying as much attention to him might not have the same result as you not paying as much attention to him, because he doesn't care about his teacher as much. So there's that part of it. Just because you're more closely linked, you have like a bigger influence on each other's behavior. And also, I think kids do work really hard to not stand out in the classroom and to not, quote, get in trouble. When my middle son was around this age, he was having a really tough time adjusting to, like, his sister being born, and he was like really being challenging at home. And I was telling his kindergarten teachers about it, and they said, we almost don't believe you. Like, he is so easy at school. Like, he's a great leader. He's like the best behaved child in the entire classroom. And I went home and I said, I was joking, but I said, "Why are you so good at school and so bad at home?" And he said, "I don't like getting in trouble by strangers." So, I mean, not that he was really in trouble, but like that was the gist of it for him, was like, if they don't really know me and, they're not my people, like, I'm going to really toe the line.
Mhm, mhm. It's probably wise too.
Hmm. So, do you think you can try those things?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try them. Makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, I definitely make a concerted effort and try to be more conscious of just my own dysregulation when it happens, because that does happen.
So remind yourself, remember, don't it's not giving me a hard time, he's having a hard time. And this is not a reflection on me. No, try not to take it personally. Give yourself some, I'm not saying it's easy, but give yourself some, love and compassion. Even though he's swearing, I'm still a good mom. And take some deep breaths, because, when you just said you recognize you have to try and manage your own dysregulation, his nervous system and your nervous system are always communicating with each other. There's a process called neuroception where we're always looking for cues of safety and danger. Our nervous system it's an unconscious process. And so if you're dysregulated, he can't borrow your calm to get back to regulation himself.
What if sometimes when I stay calm, he seems to increase his intensity and he starts hitting as well? And then sometimes I say, because I try to stop him from hitting, but then he comes back even harder, or he'll start threatening to throw things at me, like sharp, heavy objects that could cause damage.
Does he
So,
ever throw them?
yeah, he has. Not really. Yeah, he has actually. I don't think they've hit me or I've like
Good,
blocked them,
good, good.
but then I'll say, I need to go to the other room to protect my body. And then that makes him really upset, but I don't know how else to handle that. And I don't want to like physically like restrain him in terms of like getting on the floor and holding him down while
Mm-hmm.
he's thrashing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I should be doing that
You should
or,
never touch a child if you're feeling at all dysregulated.
yeah. So I try to remove myself, but
Yeah.
then I worry that that also triggers in him feelings of abandonment.
Yeah.
And then he starts screaming.
Right. It probably does. So if you can stay with him, but just keep some distance between you.
Hmm, hmm.
If you have to put a closed door between you to keep yourself safe or him safe, that's fine. That's, sort of the second choice. But, you want to think about aggression on a continuum. And swearing and yelling is at the beginning of the continuum. And then it moves on to, spitting, throwing things, hitting, like as the aggression is increased, right? As the feeling is increased. So you want to respond the exact same way that I said to respond to the swearing. Like, "Oh my goodness, you must be so upset to want to hit or to want to throw things." And for that, you can give him an alternative. Like, if your body needs to hit this pillow.
Yeah, I've said that before.
Good. Was he willing to
No,
do it?
no,
No. Keep
no.
trying.
He wants to hit me, and then he's pretty strong, and he actually it like hurts.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
So you want to think about the fact that this is the hitting is that dysregulated fight or flight energy because he's upset. The only way anyone ever wants to calm down is if they feel understood and their feelings are acknowledged. Of course you're upset about this, and I can't let you hit me, so I'm moving over here or whatever. But it's the same response. Is like trying to respond to the feeling that's underneath the aggression. And if you can try to stay calm yourself and give him that anchor, let empathize with him, recognize this is a fear response, right? Even if it's the fear is because he's gotten hijacked by his own overwhelm of his own big feelings of not getting what he wants or whatever the situation is. The body and brain recognize that the same as they would a threat because a tiger jumped out at you when you're walking through the woods.
Yeah.
So that's the fight or flight. And so you want to give him your own calm to co regulate. You want to acknowledge his feelings and empathize. And if you can, keep trying to give him another alternative. Somebody that I follow who specializes in aggression, that's Tasha Shore. She's great. She has a program called Out with Aggression. She says that you also can get playful if he's being aggressive. So, if he's starting to hit, you can say something like, "What? Do you need a high five? Come here, you silly superhero guy. Come here and give me a high five," and try to meet that need by getting playful. So that's something else that you could try too.
Hmm. Isn't that kind of though like redirecting, almost like playing like a mind game because there is like a legitimate need under there? And is that kind of like preying on the fact that their brain still isn't that developed so that you can kind of distract them or change their mind of thinking, but you're still not getting at the root cause?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it for sure. And I think that, if you're finding that you're not getting, I think some kids, let me back up. I think some kids go to hitting out of habit. And I'm not sure if that's your son or not, if he's kind
Hmm.
of just gotten in the habit of it. So I think you could do both. I think you could acknowledge that he's unhappy about something, that he's feeling angry, and try to turn the hitting into something more playful.
Hmm.
I think you could do it in a way that's not disrespecting his feelings.
Not like patronizing.
Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So you think that even with like the swearing and like the physicality level of aggression, it's still within the realm of like normal for spirited children?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, hitting, not, as I said, not every kid hits or swears, but it is totally normal.
Hmm. And for it to happen like quite frequently.
Yeah. Then, and I'll give you like another thing to work on. If you do find that he's hitting and swearing a lot, it could mean that he has a full emotional backpack. Let me explain that. The emotional backpack is a peaceful parenting metaphor developed by my mentor, Dr. Laura Markham, and it's a metaphor for our bodies. The backpack is a metaphor for our bodies. And so when we're experiencing any tensions or stresses or, big feelings that we can't process in the moment, and that's, you've said he's quite well behaved at school,
Hmm.
and for a spirited kid with big feelings, he's going to have to be holding on to some of these stresses and tensions, right? And kind of putting them in
Yes.
his backpack, holding on to them in his body. Just like if you had a bad day at work, you probably wouldn't sit and cry at your desk. You'd
Yeah.
keep it together until you got home.
Yeah.
But then if you don't deal with those feelings that are in your emotional backpack, they either come out when you're not expecting or something triggers them to come out, right?
Yeah.
And so the way that kids and adults empty our emotional backpacks is through laughter and tears and vigorous exercise. So you might think about, okay, every day after school, we're going to do some rough housing, which will also scratch the itch of the connection piece and attention piece that we were talking about at the beginning of our call.
Hmm.
So you might do 10 minutes of laughter and rough housing to help him laugh, to release some of those tensions. Because laughter does, it releases the tensions and stresses from our bodies. Crying does also. So if there's any, does he cry very much?
Hmm. Yeah,
Good.
there's some of that
So
too.
lean into the crying. If he's crying, even if he hurts his knee or something like that, you can, oh, it must hurt so much. Oh my goodness, your knee, it's red. And just help him cry. And that's going to help empty that emotional backpack.
Mm.
And for kids who do tend to get angry easily or tend to go to aggression easily, that's a very big sign of a full emotional backpack.
Mm.
And it doesn't mean that, school is bad or he's unhappy or anything like that. It's just through the course of the day as humans, we experience difficulties, and maybe his friend wouldn't play with him, or the teacher told them that they had to put away their coloring and he wanted to keep coloring, all of those normal things that happen through the course of a sensitive, spirited, strong willed. Is he strong willed as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, sensitive, spirited, strong willed 4-year old, he's going to get a full backpack every day. So as much
Yes.
as you and his dad can just do this like intentional backpack emptying, that should really help with the aggression and swearing also.
Mm, mhm, mhm, mhm. I love that. That's really good.
So if you do have some ideas for how you can get him laughing, is he pretty easy
Well,
to
my
get
husband, he's
laughing?
actually really good at the laughing aspect. He'll always kind of like, "No, ow," and he'll kind of like be very like light about him trying to like hit him with like actual force and like real anger. So he's really good at that. So I can start trying that as well. I
Okay.
just I just notice sometimes when my husband does it that it like angers him because I think he feels like he's almost being mocked.
Well, maybe he's not combining it with empathy of like, of course you're upset about this, and he just feels like it's not. what he's upset about isn't getting
Yeah,
acknowledged.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
well, the
It's the
roughhousing,
combination approach, I think you're
yeah.
saying.
And the
Yeah,
roughhousing that I'm talking about is like not just to come home and have it be part of your routine, not as a response to him being angry, but just have like 10 minutes of laughter right when you come home or sometime in your routine after school as just part of what we do. Like you can do games like, like a silly chase game or pretend you're a monster and, he's got to get away from you or a, horse ride around the house or making him into a pizza. That's one thing that my kids liked a lot is like pretend they were the dough and you roll them out and put the cheese and the sauce on. And
yeah, yeah.
so anything like that, I have a download that has lots of roughhousing ideas that I'll send to you, and
Okay,
we'll
thank
put
you.
that in the show notes. I think actually if you go to Sarah Rosen, I'll send it to you, but for anyone who's listening, if you go to sararosensweet.com/laughter, I have like a little ebook that has tons of ideas that I've compiled from other parents about how they get their kids laughing. So if you feel a little roughhousing challenged, you can look and see if something in there inspires you. So there's lots of different silly things that people do. I remember when I was little, my dad would do this thing to me and my sister where he would hold us like a baby and he would say, "Oh, my little baby, I would never drop you. No, I would never drop you." And then he would let his arms drop like a foot, and so you do that like drop through the air. And they're
Yeah,
like, "Oh, I almost dropped you." And we would just laugh and laugh. So, things like that you'll develop as like part of your family repertoire of laughter things.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
good.
So if you can get them laughing, that's really going to help with the backpack.
Mhm, mhm,
Another
mhm.
nice metaphor is I read this somewhere that like a pop bottle. So if you think about that, he's like a bottle of pop, and at school, a little thing happens with his friend or the teacher or whatever, and it's like the pop bottle gets a shake and then another shake. And then maybe it gets like 5 or 6 shakes throughout the day, and the lid is on tight. So the pressure's building up. And when he gets home, he feels safe. As you said, that you're his people. He feels safe. And one little thing might make the lid come off and it comes exploding out, right? All of that pressure from the day.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. That's such a good metaphor. That makes a lot of sense.
hmm So
Yeah.
the laughter will help like slowly, that's like when you slowly release the top of the pop bottle and let a little bit of the fizz out and you don't get the giant explosion all at once.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. And you don't think that there's any kind of like underlying like trauma that he's been holding on to and trying to work out through these outbursts, or it could very well be, and it could also be like daily stuff as
What you've
well.
described sounds absolutely normal. And of course, I haven't met your son and I don't know your history. So I can't say nothing bad has ever
Yeah.
happened to him. But
Yeah.
everything that you're describing sounds 100% normal for a strong willed, sensitive, spirited 4-year-old.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah. I guess because sometimes I think about like fights that my partner and I had when he was like a baby and just like how upsetting they were. And we were new parents and going through a lot. And I just sometimes worry that those like really bad fights in front of him and the emotional weight that he got from that maybe has like lingered within him and is causing some of this. But I guess it's one of those things that you just don't know. Like it could be, and it could also be daily stuff.
And you know what? I don't think there are any parents out there that have never had a fight in front of their kids. And sure, if we could go back in time, maybe there are things that we would, choose to do differently.
Yeah.
And humans are resilient, and how you go forward now with some of this, the empathy and the backpack emptying will also help him release any stuff that he may be carrying from the past.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, for
And I
sure.
do see, like, I mean, I don't know for a fact that everyone that I've worked with has never fought in front of their kids, but I'm pretty sure that there are people who have strong-willed, sensitive, and spirited kids, and they didn't fight, and they still have these outbursts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
really,
true.
blaming yourself is not going to help anything, and you got to give yourself some compassion. It's hard having little kids. My husband and I look back sometimes and think, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe we didn't get divorced when our kids were little." Like it's really hard on a marriage having little kids, and that is definitely something that people don't talk about very much.
Yeah, they don't. And it's totally just rocked our world.
Yeah, you're not alone.
I mean, now finally that he's a bit older, we're kind of finding a little bit more
You're not alone.
equilibrium, but
Yeah, introducing a different person, a new person into the relationship. And also when we have kids, it brings up a lot of our unhealed stuff, right? And, I people that I work with who are like, I've been a kindergarten teacher for 20 years and I've never felt, I've never gotten triggered by a child before. And then there's the, relationship stuff of people feeling left out because maybe you spent all your time and attention on your partner. And now there's this kid who's taking the time and attention. And there's so many variables. And it's really normal to have challenges in your relationship when you have little kids.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
There's a good book. It's been a couple of years since I read it, but there's a good book called And Baby Makes Three. It's by John and Julie Gottman, and they're
Oh, yeah,
relationship
I know
experts.
Gottman. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so they have a book that's all about adjusting. And even if you don't have a baby still, it's probably still got helpful things about the relationship.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll check in with you in a couple of weeks and see how things have gone.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Lian. Hi, Lian. Welcome back.
Hello. Thank you.
So, how has it been since we last spoke, Lian?
So it's still been challenging when he gets really upset and starts swearing. I have been saying, like, I hear you're really upset. I hear you're really angry. I want to help you. But for some reason, it doesn't seem to calm him down, me saying that. And he's just like, no, you poopy. And like, just so, yeah, I don't really know. I mean, we've been trying to do like get some of the rough housing in every day,
Good.
spend some like silly time and like focus time and like get his energy out. So we've been trying that. But I don't know. I don't know if maybe we're not doing enough of that or if for some reason empathizing with him in that moment he's too angry for it to hit home. I'm not
Right.
sure.
Okay, so a couple questions. Do you feel like you're actually really getting to the empathy when you are trying to empathize with him? Are you feeling like annoyed and frustrated and like he's being unreasonably upset?
I feel like I really am trying to empathize.
Okay.
I guess the best that I can in that moment.
Did we talk last time about if it's hard to empathize? I forget.
I'm not sure. I mean, you did say like he's not trying to give you a hard time, he's having a hard time. So we've really been thinking about that and really trying to hone in on that feeling when he's getting upset. But I don't know if maybe it's not coming across as like as deeply as he might need. I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
Okay. So I'll go over that in a second, but I wanted to say a couple things first. It may be that even if I want to talk about empathizing, but it may be that you are empathizing and he's just still upset because, he's 4 and he doesn't have a lot of power or control and he would like to stay up all night and watch TV and eat cookies and, never have to take a bath or put his pajamas on or any of those
Yeah.
things. So it could be that you've just got a boy who has big feelings and it's okay. I think we have to remember that empathy is not a tactic. Like it's not like, okay, if it can feel like it is sometimes because often people do calm down after they feel empathized with. At the same time, it's not really like we're not doing it to make him calm down. He might still be very upset because he doesn't like whatever it is that's going on, right? So there may be a level in which you think, "Oh, this isn't working," working in quotes, but really we're playing a long game here. Like we're building a relationship with your son where he feels understood by you and his dad. He feels like you're on his side, you're on the same team. So if you can think of it more of like long term, zooming out, like this is a process of building our relationship together so that he feels like, you know, understood and loved and close to us and we have a good relationship. And it may be that because he's 4 and he has big feelings and he has low impulse control, he's going to be a little messy and a little volatile and a little, hard to deal with sometimes just because he's young and he has big feelings. So don't don't think like this, we're going to give up on this because it's not working and he still gets upset a lot. That just may be part of being 4 and being an intense kid. That said, sometimes it doesn't, quote, work because a child doesn't actually feel empathized with. And so one thing that I find is really hard for clients or parents in our community sometimes is that they are saying the words, but they're still, and I'm not saying this is you, but I'm just throwing some things out there. They're saying all the right words, but they're not empathizing at a heart level because they actually think it's really ridiculous that their kid is upset because, you cut the muffin in half or you said you couldn't eat the whole bag of chips or like whatever it is. And if we try to empathize by thinking like, oh, gee, how would I feel if somebody cut my food wrong? You'll never get to empathy. But if you can think about what's underneath that surface, right? Like maybe it's even he's exhausted and he's had a long day and this is just the straw that broke the camel's back. Or maybe it's, he's powerless. He doesn't get to choose his own food. He doesn't have control over these things in his life. Or maybe he's disappointed because he thought you knew that he wanted to like have that nice big muffin that he could hold in 2 hands and eat it or whatever. So if we think about, oh, I've had those days too where it just feels like everything's wrong, or, I know what it feels like to feel powerless, or I know what it feels like to feel misunderstood or disappointed by someone that I love. So if you might, go away from here today and try to see if you might improve a little bit on those connection moments, not connection exactly, but connecting to the feeling that is underneath the upset, that might help. And, I think also just telling yourself it's okay if he's upset. Like we're not trying to end that. We're just trying to be with him in his upset. It's not like there's an end goal of, having him not be upset. It's really, you can lean into it even. He's upset right now. He's emptying his emotional backpack. He's having it, as you said, he's having a hard time, not giving us a hard time. And put your focus on the empathy piece that we just talked about and also staying calm yourself and just telling yourself it's okay if he, as we said last time, just because he's swearing now or calling you poopy head or whatever it is, it doesn't mean he's a bad kid who's going to grow up to do, to be a bad person when he grows up.
Hmm. Yeah, I can see that. What if when he's like really hitting and punching, do you still recommend kind of just like separating a bit?
Mm-hmm.
Like giving that space, however, like I need to maybe leave. Although that makes him just scream even more, but like I don't know what to do in those moments.
Yeah. So, stuff we went over before the last time. So I just briefly, so I don't want to repeat the whole thing again, but just really trying to soften, keep yourself safe if you have to. I mean, leaving the room would sort of be a last resort. I would say moving over to another part of the room if you can, and empathizing. I don't know if he's big enough that you actually couldn't gently restrain him. And of course, as I said before, never touch a child if you're feeling angry, but gently holding him so he can't hurt anyone or himself because he really doesn't want to hurt you either, right? Like that would make him feel bad later to see, oh, I scratched my mom or, whatever. He doesn't want to be that kid who's done anything that hurts someone he loves. So really trying to do prevention if you can physically. If you can't do it physically, then with space or you're moving yourself away. And last case scenario, or the last resort is to move yourself to a different room. But really we want to think of aggression as that's the deep end. Like you've already gone from 0 to 100. What can you do before it gets to that point? In terms of like the, as you mentioned, the laughter and roughhousing as preventive stuff. And also like before he starts hitting and kicking, I think I asked you to keep a log of the aggression. Did I ask you to do that?
Oh, if you didn't, I forgot.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, that's something that you can do
I'm going to
moving
start doing
forward.
that.
Yeah. Keep a log and start to notice any patterns of when it happens, what it's about, what's happened just before that, and see if you can start to notice any patterns because that there often are patterns and the aggression doesn't come out of nowhere. So keep track of it. And really what we want to think about is how can we start to step in and do something before he gets to the hitting and kicking point. My friend Dana Abraham, who is also in the parenting world, she has this great visual that she talks about where there's like that old fashioned like carnival machine where you drop a penny in or a nickel or whatever and it goes around It goes around a funnel and then it drops into a hole at the bottom. And she says our job is to try and intercept it before it drops down, right? So like as the nickel's going around this funnel and picking up speed, like what can we do before it's completely, before it's all lost? I know some people in my Facebook group have talked about every time their kid starts to get upset, they say something like, "Do you look like you need a hug?" or something like that. Like you're so angry, I think you need a hug. Have you ever tried that with him? That might help, just helping him get more regulated in the moment. How have you been feeling though about the whole the swearing? And I know you were really quite upset about it when we talked the first time.
Yeah, it's still upsetting me, even though I understand the underlying thing. I guess just because it happens quite frequently and he goes from 0 to 100 quite fast. And like just the other day, I was just trying to put him in the car seat to go to school and he punches me in the face. And it's just like, okay,
Tell
I don't
me tell
know.
me more about that. Like
So
it would be
he,
unusual if that went from he was totally fine to punching you in the face.
no, I mean, he was upset, like he was having his tantrum. Well, basically, it started in the morning at home. He was just not wanting to go to school. He wasn't wanting to get ready, and then had to force him to. And then by the time we got to the car, he was really, really upset. He didn't want to go. He didn't want to say goodbye to his dad. I was driving. And so it just culminated in him just punching me. And yeah, it really hurt.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
yeah, thanks. I just obviously didn't react. But it just wears on you when it's like every day. Maybe it doesn't get to that level every day, but it goes from the swearing words. Like it's just it all seems pretty quick. Like there's not this like a long runway it feels, and it feels like it happens quite frequently.
So going back to that morning, when if you rewind, go back in our time machine, you said it started out with him feeling upset about going to school. If you look back, do you think there's anything that you could have done to maybe saying like, "Oh, it's so tough when you have to go to school and you would rather stay home. Let's play for 5 minutes. What do you want to play?" And, just trying to do an intervention at that point so that you're not, kind of okay, he doesn't want to go to school. Now he doesn't want to get dressed. You said you forced him, which maybe is partly what set up the punch when you're putting him in his car seat was he already was dysregulated and he felt kind of manhandled and like you weren't listening to him maybe. So I wonder if if that sort of thing comes up again, if you can just give yourself a pause, like, okay, everything's going sideways here. What do we need to do? And I always say to parents, if you forget everything else, think about empathy and connection.
But I actually did try to do that multiple
All
times.
right, tell me
And
about
I,
that.
I kept saying, like, I know, my love, I know you don't want to go to school today. I know. And my husband was like, I know, sometimes I don't feel like going to work
Right.
either. Like, I know. You just want to stay home and play. We did that for like half an hour and read multiple books. He wanted to read more books, kept delaying putting on the clothes till I was running late.
Okay.
And then that's when finally I was just like, we really have to go now. We really have to go. Like, I'm already late. We would have to go. And that's when forcing of the clothes that he didn't want to put on happened.
Was he wearing anything?
He was just wearing his pajamas.
So did you try saying to him, do you want to go in your, we have to go, darling. I know you don't want to go. Do you want to go in your pajamas or do you want to put your clothes on?
No, I didn't try that. I guess I could just let him go in pajamas next time.
Yeah, because I think the forcing probably got you off on a bad foot. So I would just say, "Do you want to?" And maybe he would say, "I want to put my clothes on," or maybe he would say, "I want to go in my pajamas." And you could have thrown his clothes in his backpack if he changed his mind. So that's one thing you could try if that happens again. Another thing that you can try when going to school is hard or drop offs are hard is what we call bridging. So, and you say, I know you don't want to go to school. When I pick you up again at 4 o'clock, or when we see each other again at, 4 o'clock or whatever it is, we're going to do this. We're going to put a bookmark in this book. And when we come home, we're going to sit on the couch again and we're going to read this book. So you're like building a bridge across the part of the day that he doesn't want, which is to be away from you and his dad, to the part of the day that is good for him again. That, it's
Yeah.
not like a magic trick, but it does help a lot.
Yeah, we tried something similar where my husband's like, when I come to pick you up, I'm going to bring you a snack. We're going to take the subway home. We get to go on the train.
Great.
We can read more when we get home. So there was attempts on that too, but it didn't really seem to.
It's some days are like that, I guess, too. But I we'll never know if if you had offered the to go in the pajamas, if he might not have punched you when you got in the car.
Yeah, yeah.
It's possible that same thing would have happened. However, it's also possible that if we
He
can
didn't
go
feel
back and
so
sometimes
manhandled.
yeah, yeah, if we can go back at times, sometimes just one little small tweak can change the rest of the course.
Yeah, yeah.
I know you got a strong-willed kid who does not like to be bossed, and he didn't wanna go to school, and, I'm sorry that happened to you, though. Nobody should get punched.
Thank you. And now my husband's reading this book called The Explosive Child.
Oh, that's a great one.
Okay, so I thought that maybe it was good, so I recommended it to him.
Mhm.
But then he's saying in the book that it's recommending that when the child is upset, to ignore them. And that only when they calm down to praise them and give them the attention then. And I was like, but that's not
That doesn't sound like what I remember about the book and doesn't sound like
okay.
what Ross Greene would say. It
So maybe
it
my husband has
sounds
some
like
weird wrong interpretation.
well, it sounds like what he could be saying is don't try to what a big thing they talk about is don't try to problem solve when someone's upset, right? You don't wanna try to, come up with a solution when someone's upset. You wanna wait until they're calm. So I wonder if that's what he's gotten confused about?
Yeah, well, I'll read the book now myself too, so I can
Okay,
just
yeah.
counter him and say, because I said, that's not what Sarah said. And that doesn't sit right with me even
No.
before meeting Sarah in terms of everything I've read and like
I
how
can
to relate
almost
to
guarantee
children.
you that Ross Greene would not say that you should ignore a child when they're upset. I could almost guarantee that.
Yeah, I was like, that's so backward. I'm like,
Yeah.
we've moved so far away from that. I was like, oh, now I regret recommending that book, but I'm going to read it now because if you're
Yeah.
saying that, then he probably somehow got something wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There's also that website, and we'll link to that book in the show notes, but the website for Ross Greene's work is also really good with lots of like cheat sheets and work like resources for parents that you can print out. So that's really good also.
Would you say, based on what you've heard, like my child is a pretty like extreme example of explosive type of child?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
I think he's run of the mill, intense, strong-willed 4-year-old with big feelings.
Okay.
Like I really do. It's not
Okay.
nothing that you've said makes me think he's extreme. I mean, he's maybe extreme compared to an easygoing 4-year-old who's not super
Yeah.
sensitive without big
Yeah.
feelings. But I work with so many parents whose kids are a lot like your son.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good to know that we don't need like major intervention,
No,
at
I
least
think
not
I
at this
think you can do
stage.
this. And it's only been a few weeks since you sort of shifted your approach.
Yeah, that's true.
So
It
give
takes a
it
while.
it does take a while. So give it some time. Keep doing all of the things. Work on, those points where you can think, is this, the example with the pajamas or the clothes? Like how, with strong-willed kids, there's sort of three big ideas that we just want to think about. One, working on your connection and your relationship. Two, only setting the limits that you need to and not forcing, right? Really trying not to force unless it's a health or safety issue. So, you do need to buckle them into the car seat and you wouldn't use force until you've tried all of the other, do you want to do it yourself or do you want me to do it? As soon as you do it, I'll put on your favorite song, like, whatever. But I'm just saying that there are very few instances where we would actually want to use force with anything or it sets us back. And the third idea is what I just said, like finding a win-win solution. So trying to make it fun with those choices or making it a game or giving them something to work towards or bridging the task. So it may be just that you've got some habits that are ingrained that you've got to start thinking about, how do we work with this kid in a different way? And also the empathy piece that we talked about in terms of, really trying to see underneath the surface issue and empathize from there.
Yes.
And remember that zooming out that we just said, like, this isn't something that, okay, it's not working in the moment, so we're giving up, but we're like building this relationship.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. Well, keep me posted, okay?
Okay, well,
All
thank you
right.
so
Take
much,
care.
Sarah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found this conversation insightful and exactly what you needed in this moment. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Remember that I'm rooting for you. I see you out there showing up for your kids and doing the best you can. Sending hugs over the airwaves today. Hang in there. You've got this.